Welcome. I'm Barbara Marcum, the Director of Senior Resources for the City of Westland. With me today is Kevin Sharples, who is the owner and administrator of No Place Like Home Health. And I looked at your website. Welcome to the show, by the way.
Thank you.
I looked at your website, was very impressed that it was very informative and very thorough. So I want to talk a little bit first about your background in the military. You're a veteran. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I'm a very patriotic person. I respect that a lot. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, Barb, I'm an Army veteran, 9 years, 2 months, 26 days, but who counted, right? I hear that all the time. My background's administration. So really, my 9 years that I was in was all administration with different types of services in different locations, from the U.S. to Belgium and down to a joint command in Florida. So it was kind of a different Army situation than a lot of others, but that kind of led me on my path of where I'm at now with my life.
Well, tell me a little bit about what led you to home health care. I mean, you are very involved with veterans. You were at the VA, is that right, for a while?
I was, actually, yes. I've worked at the Department of Veterans Affairs in Ann Arbor for over 7 years in different job titles. Yeah. And so really, while I was there at Ann Arbor, I was getting my undergrad in health services administration. And so that kind of led me into this field, plus working at the VA. And then after that, while I was still there, I decided to do my graduate courses. Mm-hmm. And so I have an executive MBA or business master's. And during that, at critical thinking time, we had a class and we did a feasibility study on opening up a home care agency in our area. And I knew there was a need. And veterans has always been one of my nearest and dearest things to me. And since I was working at the VA, I really wanted to expand on that, working with veterans. And so I decided to take that leap of faith and leave the VA and start my home care agency, which we started in 2016.
Okay, that's had to be kind of a scary jump.
It really was. There was a lot of planning involved in that. And I don't know if a lot of people realize that Michigan is not a licensed state for home care. And so for non-medical, which is where we needed to start. And
right.
So I partnered up with a consulting firm out of Florida because I wanted to lay the foundations and get our policies and procedures and lay that foundation to make sure that we were doing things the right way.
I saw that on your website.
And so that led us to being able to get that next step, which was becoming accredited through Medicare. And which we've recently done.
That's not easy either. If you want to explain a little bit of that to the viewing audience, yes.
Absolutely. So we started that process right when COVID was started, and so we kind of had to, kind of bring it back in a little bit while COVID was happening.
Challenging.
And really kind of refocus on our non-medical side, and then we got a great team in place at our agency that allowed us to be able to go back in and make sure that we were doing the things that we needed to do under our accreditation or survey process. So one of those is we have to get with ACHC, which is the Accreditation Commission for Healthcare. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like CHAPS or JCO, if you've heard of those.
JCO, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's the same thing. It's just kind of for smaller agencies that can go out and do those things that you need to do to be able to succeed, pass that survey, and then do all those other things that Medicare requires. So
it's not easy to get that certification.
It is not, and it took a lot of processes and, but having that foundation that we laid in the beginning really helped to go through that. We actually passed our survey in August of last year in flying colors, which was awesome.
Great.
And without the team involved there, that we wouldn't have been able to do that. So it was a great process to be able to do. And then recently, we've just received our Medicare number finally. So now we're starting to do those other things like credential with other insurances and things like that to be able to offer additional services for everybody.
Wonderful. Okay, so how do veterans fit in with what you do?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I mentioned was when COVID kind of struck, we had actually gone in and credentialed through the VA Community Care Network. It is a network under the VA that does services for our veterans, home care services or skilled services or anything that they need that they can't get readily at the VA. So like home care, like what we do, right, for a home health aide, or a CNA that comes out and provides activities of daily living like bathing, dressing, grooming, those type of things.
Yes.
The VA doesn't have those readily available, so they use the community care network. And so we actually credentialed right during COVID, and we ended up getting approved through there. So as we were getting through the COVID phases, we actually were growing our business with the VA, with all of the veterans that we were starting to get. So that is a huge aspect that started that part. So we have under non-medical, we have home health aides and CNAs that go out and work with our veterans in the community and their home, wherever that is, as a regular resident, or maybe it's an independent living facility. Sometimes it's even in a skilled facility.
I don't want to interrupt, but what is your service area?
Our service area for our majority areas, there's 5 counties, but it's Wayne, Washtenaw, Oakland, Livingston, and Genesee. We actually started in Genesee. Okay. And then from there, though, our real core area is going to be like this 94 to 275, 696 over to 75, and a little bit of surrounding. So that's where our majority of our clients or our patients are.
Okay, so you were saying, so now you get a lot of your referrals from the VA.
Correct.
It helps that you're accredited now, that you can deal with Medicare.
Right.
Okay, and so does the VA help veterans with home health care?
Yeah, absolutely. So they have multiple different programs that they have available for the veterans out there. And a lot of places don't know about this. So, and our goal right now is to really educate, and this is a great tool for us to be able to do that.
Absolutely right.
To let people know that there are other programs available for them to use when they're for their home care. So this program, the home health aid program, does those services for the veterans, just for the veterans, not for a spouse on this one though, okay? So for our veterans, that does ADLs and IADLs. So what I mean by those is
instrumental activities of daily living, which is balancing a checkbook, doing a grocery list, preparing a meal.
Absolutely.
And ADLs are your basic things. Can you feed yourself? Can you toilet yourself? Can you bathe yourself?
Correct.
Those things. Okay.
Yeah. So the VA looks at each veteran and they look at a termination and put them in a priority group kind of, and it tells, based off of, what situation they have in their home, what priority group they're going to be in. And then once...
I was going to ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, like if they have no one else in their home and they're living alone, or they're elderly, so I'm thinking of the different scenarios, or if they are low income. But if they're not low income, if they're retired military, they've got a pension and Social Security. So what are the eligibilities for this particular program?
There's a lot of different ones that are on there. So that's kind of a one-on-one education piece that we kind of help them out with.
Okay.
But for instance, like you were saying, it can depend on what they're at. For the most part, they're not going to pay for these services. There are some co-pays, but it depends on their income level where they're at, but the VA determines that. So let's say that somebody that just needs the help doesn't have any type of requirements as far as like payment-wise, they pay, or they will give anywhere from about 9 hours a week of services up to, we have some that are 20 hours a week. For somebody to come in and help them with those ADLs and the IADLs, which is huge. Okay,
suppose that the reason they're having problems are because of, for example, my father-in-law, Agent Orange.
Okay.
He died of lung disease, never smoked a cigarette, but he died of Agent Orange exposure. But he required quite a bit of care at the end. And they never called anyone and they don't know, and that's why we're doing this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the VA goes through the primary care physician that's going to find that there is that need there, right? And then after that, they get with social work. Social work does what they call a case mix, and that case mix determines, based off of their needs on the ADLs and the IADLs, what level they are going to give them for the number of hours.
is that caseworker kind of a case manager who kind of is in the between service and what the needs are, or no?
Yes and no, because they're the same ones. Like, they can help them get additional things, like, let's say they need adult undergarments or
Medical
pads,
equipment
medical equipment, DME, any of that stuff. So absolutely, so they can help with that.
Okay.
And then there's other programs too that they have as well. So let's say you have a family member that's helping out and they're just at their wits' ends, which we know happens a lot, right?
Caregiving is hard.
Absolutely. And the first thing I always say to somebody that's doing caregiving is you got to take care of yourself
first.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, how are you going to take care of somebody else, right? So
I get it.
so that's a huge part of that. And so they have other programs that are underneath this community care network. So they have a respite program. So let's say you just need, let's say once a week you have a need to be able to go out and do your errands, or you have doctor's appointments.
Clean your house, go to your doctor, do your grocery shopping.
Exactly.
Yes.
So they actually will give respite hours for somebody, a home health aide, to come in and help out with that. That's one. They also have a caregiver respite program, which is huge. It's if you are the main caregiver, that's somebody that's of your loved one, and you can't do it anymore. If you go through their program, which the VA has established on there, then that allows you to be part of this program, which could go, I've seen it go up to 40 hours a week for somebody to come in and help out because of that. So there's a lot of different programs that we know about, that we just are trying to get the information out so people know about them and can use them when they need them.
You know, there's been a lot of criticism with the VA. I mean, my father-in-law loved it, went to Ann Arbor, but my dad is a World War II veteran. He's 96. He went to the VA to get a COVID shot, and they refused him because he made too much money. So, yeah, I mean, I called the news. And so, anyway, that ended up leading to some change, so they weren't denying any veteran a COVID vaccine.
Right.
But okay, so anyway, so now I know that there are a lot of ways that they've improved in the VA in the last several years.
Absolutely. Some of those big ones that they made changes to are mental health related. So you no longer have to be, if you're a veteran and you need mental health help, you can go to any VA that's out there. Okay, and see them in the ER.
Let's talk about that a little bit, okay? Because there is a lot of depression going on in the world now, okay? But the thing is one thing that I've noticed, having my dad and my father-in-law, both one Vietnam vet, the other World War II, they don't talk about their military service. And I think it's because it's very traumatic, and that has to you can't be a soldier and you're a soldier and then you're a civilian.
Right.
And it's like to separate those two, and with your values and morals and some of the things that you have to do in the service, it's like that's just got to be, I mean, when nobody talks about it, they don't talk about it for a reason.
Right.
That's probably really important.
It is, and it's a key point that we try to teach our caregiving and our staff about as well. That's one thing I think that I have a benefit of, is being in the military,
Yes.
right? And so I'm kind of a liaison a lot of times when it comes to that, where when we recognize there's something going on, or maybe there's, we need to kind of dig into something a little bit more, I can a lot of times bring that out or help people when it comes to that, and get them to the right positions, or parts. One thing that we do that's a little different, because we're so veteran focused. Now, we help anybody, don't get me wrong.
I was going to mention that.
So, but because of our veteran focus, we do a lot of teaching for our care staff on different programs that the VA has. They have really great informational stuff that's out there in classes and everything, and we kind of incorporate a lot of those into our care staff and training. So the three key things that I always try to tell everybody when we're first going in and talking about military is era, culture, and identity, because each of our veterans is different.
Different group, yes.
Different era.
Yes.
Somebody that served in Vietnam is different than somebody that served in the
Korea.
Gulf War, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
World War II, yes.
So that's our era information, right? But during those same things, they have different exposures or modalities or different things that happen too. What I mean by modalities, like injuries maybe, I know you probably have seen our website where we talk about maybe polytrauma, things like that. That's somebody
Traumatic brain injury.
Absolutely.
What were some of the other ones on that list?
Polytrauma, because that's like we're missing multiple limbs.
Suicide,
Sexual assault.
harassment,
Harassment and assault, absolutely. Anybody that has any type of that also that is suffering from that type of stuff can see the VA for free as well. So it doesn't matter if they were maybe, there's a lot of mental health stigma with the VA, unfortunately, that is kind of, they don't want to talk about that mental health, because we're kind of a proud group.
PTSD is
Absolutely.
huge. I mean, some of the things you experience, it's like you need professional help to help you. People think if you see a psychiatrist or a mental health professional, all they do is help you sort it out in your head. Sometimes it's like compartmentalizing. It's just working out your feelings and what you've experienced.
Right.
It's not a bad thing. People who go and seek out mental health are the healthiest.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so anyway.
And I know like a lot of that stigma has been like, well, a lot of people get discharged from the military because of that. Yeah. And they don't fall under honorable discharges a lot of times. So the VA's really changed that. It doesn't matter what type of discharge you were. If you're having mental health issues or crisis, you can see them. That's huge.
It is huge.
Absolutely.
And I think that, I don't know when that was, but they said if you can't receive care, you can, if it's a waiting list longer than however long that was, that you can seek care outside of the VA and they will pay for it.
And that's part of the community care network that we were kind of talking about, so that we're part of. So I know another part that we didn't really kind of talk about yet is that our skilled side of our agency. So not only do we have that, the home health aides and the CNAs, but we have skilled nursing and PT and OT and social work and those type of individuals that come in and help out with that. And what we call that, a lot of times what we're able to do that some agencies aren't, is continuity of care.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we'll get somebody coming out of a skilled nursing facility, they'll need these type of skilled care, but then that transitions into the home health aides or CNAs that need to come in and help them with those ADLs and IADLs. So that's huge because we can provide that right from the get-go, from when they go, they're released, and we can start it up and kind of transition that all the way through.
Yes, what do you look for when you're hiring people?
Oh, that's a good thing. We have 3 values that I have. Number 1 is compassion. In this field, you see a lot of people sometimes that you question on that, unfortunately. Yes. But compassion lays their foundation. Resolve and trust are our other ones. Because a lot of times when people are starting out and they've been doing this for themselves for how long? And all of a sudden, maybe your daughter or your son or somebody else in the family says, hey, Mom, Dad, you need help, right? We need to get you somebody in there. So those walls get built up, right? So that resolve comes in with our caregivers that have that compassion to be able to work with them and maybe redirect if something's going on where they don't want to do something, or the team comes in, and that compassion and resolve brings those walls down, which builds the trust to be able to work with our individuals as far as that. So compassion is number 1 for me. We do, background checks on every single person. Like I said, Michigan's not a licensed state, so there are some fly-by-night places out there.
Sometimes very transient employees as well. Yeah, so you kind of want to know that, yeah.
Absolutely. So we're primarily looking for, at the lower level with our home health aides, we're looking for CNAs or people that have gone through the training for certified home health aides, because that gives them a little bit of vested. They have a license involved. We're looking at license verification, background checks, not only through state of Michigan for some, they may be fingerprinting through LARA or, national background check, criminal, sexual, OIG, all of that stuff. So if they're going to be driving, let's say they background check for a driver's record check.
Absolutely,
so all of that comes involved, so it's a huge part that we do.
Yeah, important part.
Absolutely.
Now, sometimes when you get, anybody really, it's they want, like if you have an 80-year-old woman, she feels uncomfortable around a man, a caregiver, maybe a man, in in the hospital, you can't really choose who's taking care of you. If a male nurse is assigned to your bed, then that's the way it is.
Right.
But do people have a choice? Like if there's maybe a personality conflict, or they want a specific sex of a caregiver, can they choose those things?
Well, first and foremost, we don't discriminate against anybody.
Right,
So,
of course.
first and foremost, with that is we want to fit the right person in, right?
Yeah.
And so we're looking at a bunch of different factors when it comes to that to make sure that they get the right fit. And but yeah, if for some reason something doesn't match up or whatever, we have no problem of moving, putting in a different person or trying a different approach.
Yeah, I'm sure getting to know the clients as well. Do you do like a home assessment?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a couple different ways that we do those. Sometimes on our non-medical side, our community liaison, Joanne Darga, goes out and does some of those assessments for us. And she's really kind of that, again, a liaison, because she's going back and forth between the family and the individuals and us to work with it to find out what's going on and what the needs are for the family and so forth. If it's a veteran, we typically will send out our nursing staff, one of our skilled nurses, either an LPN or RN, and they will take what the VA sends us and on the history and physical, as well as their case mix that I mentioned earlier, so we can make sure that we're following those guidelines that the VA requires us to do. So yes, we do free in-home assessments, as well as safety assessments too when we're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if somebody, say it's a veteran, say there are some issues, and we know that like with PTSD, there are sometimes mental issues. How do you deal with that in a home environment?
Okay.
Are your aides, obviously you probably need more than just a home health aide, or not? I mean, do you train your whole staff on some of these things if they're working with?
Absolutely. So each individual has their own precise care plan. So
Yes.
they're always going to be a little bit different. So we're looking at what they come about. And again, that history and physical, that background of each
Yes.
individual helps us out tremendously to be able to set that up correctly. But there are some things that we have zero tolerance for, as well as the VA on a veteran, has some zero tolerance for that we don't have choices on them. I know you're looking at like, what do you mean? Anything sexual in relation,
Yes.
back and forth is absolute zero tolerance.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
unfortunately, but when we're looking at different things, we talk to the individual, or the client, or the veteran, or whoever it is, and say, look, you know what? Here's, if we have any type of indication, possibly maybe before or something, we'll sit down on one-on-one and talk with them and make sure that they understand kind of those rules and set, what's in place, so they understand that.
What's appropriate
Absolutely.
and what is not.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the caregivers are also taught what to look for and what not, what is expected and what's not to be expected. So, absolutely.
Well, on your website, there's another thing. A lot of veterans have chronic pain. And that's, yes, and that's really an issue, I know. So that's another thing is I'm sure you have to do with pain management and things like that you have to work with.
Yeah. So they've changed a lot of those, luckily, for our vets, and the prescriptions aren't as readily available like they used to be, where they just send something out and here you go, So we do a lot of pain management, or even medication management on our skilled side, more so than on the non-medical side. Our non-medical side is more of a medication reminders and things like that. So, but on the skilled side, yes, absolutely. So you have to look at all of that to make sure.
Yeah, I noticed on your website that you're very client-centered care. So what does that mean to your business? I know that approach is I think the best approach. But anyway, what does that mean to the business that you have?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with making sure that we put that person or individual, first and foremost with anything that they have as far as their care goes, right? So after that, we have tools in place that we use. For instance, we have what we call the family room, right? So the family room is a portal that each of our clients or their families can use to see what's going on with any of their care. They can see the notes that the caregivers are doing, the visitations that people are coming in and doing all of that. That's a great tool that we use and are able to use for our families and as well as them. But we also have nurses on staff that a lot of places don't have. And so we try to touch point every 3 weeks on every one of our clients. And so our nurses do supervisory visits. So when they're going out there to do a supervisory, they're not letting people know when they're showing up. You know, they're coming in
What you
there.
see is what you get.
Exactly. We'll let the clients know if they request that they be notified. We'll do that. But it's keeping our staff in check.
On their toes.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Making sure that they're doing the things they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it. We do daily checks as far as our task logs to make sure that everything's going well. And we also do those update plan of cares and reviews every time that they go out, and then change the plan of care if needed. So it's really focused on them, and it's individualized on every single person that we do.
How important is it to understand the family dynamics?
Huge. So each of them are a little bit different, and we try to get to know everybody that's going to be involved. But there are some times where, let's say that we have advanced directives that are in play, right? So somebody that has a power of attorney and it's enacted, that person has the right to make the decisions sometimes for those individuals. And we need to know if there's any other family dynamics that may come into play that may be a force against that. So it's huge that we know what's going on inside of the house,
Any dysfunction, background history, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Any violence, anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because not only does the service affect them if they're a veteran, growing up in specific situations have an effect as well.
Right.
Okay. I can't believe it's already done.
Wow.
But anyway, I wanted to talk about your website.
Okay.
Okay. How do they get to your information? www.
Dot.
Oh yes. Okay. Well, no, there's no place. It's an acronym for that.
Yeah, it's the first initials of our name. So PLHH.com.
.com. Okay.
easy.
And you're Kevin Sharples?
I am.
Yes. And so anyway, if they need veteran care, if they need any kind of care at all, give you a call. For sure, go to the website, because I was very impressed. It was all put together very well, very informative, and very thorough. Thank you for coming in and sharing the information with us. We'll also put up a phone number on the screen for anybody to get in contact with you.
Right.
Thanks for being on the show today.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for caring for our veterans, too.
Thanks.
Thank you and the viewing audience for being with us today. I'm Barbara Marcum, and this is Friendship Focus.